don't you come back no more.
For the past few months, I have been working on something monumental.
Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more. Don't you come back no more. Don't you come back no more.
But what you see on the surface is not all that there is. This civilization has a long history. So join me for a dive into the past.
Come back no more. What you say?
At the very beginning, there was nothing but the upper, central, and lower colonies. None of them knew that the others existed and just went about their daily lives pretty much and just did whatever. Eventually, the central colonies and the lower colonies met. But within this, in an all-out war nearly struck, the central colonies realized that there was a highly valuable resource within the central or the lower colonies, and they wanted it. In fact, it enabled the lower colonies to essentially just fly straight up. There's no real known reason of how it works. They're still trying to figure out exactly what it does, but it magic, I guess. But ironically, when the central and upper colonies met, it was extremely peaceful. The upper colonies were actually excited to see, oh look, a new new people. We thought we were the only ones. But this isn't just because they didn't have resources. In fact, they did have many resources. The way that the upper colonies were formed are from lava tubes that eventually were filled and the outside was eroded, essentially forming gigantic pillars which would have extremely valuable resources in it. In fact, we can see a mine right here of them tearing down an entire pillar. But the central colonies were not in the mood for another war, and pretty much just were like, could we have some of it? And since they had so much and didn't really know what to use it for exactly, they were willing to give some, even a bunch of it, to the central colonies. After that, they eventually started trying to progress as a single civilization. They just became the Colonials.
The lights fade, it feels like this world might be crumbling.
After nearly 4,000 years of nothing, the upper colonies felt like there was more, something outside the cave. The upper colonies, unlike the lower and central colonies, seemed to have a sky, although they found that this was just a very dense region of glowing fog, but they still tried to look beyond it. And with help from the lower colonies, they reached the top. But this wasn't the rock border they knew all too well, it was something else. They found out they could not break whatever this material was, no matter what they did. So they tried to see if they could go through the side. Lo and behold, they hit the same wall, and even after some 100 years of trying to get through, they just gave up. But a large group thought that this wall was top priority by a lot, that by breaching this boundary they would find something important, but they were not the ones to be making that decision. Now, when the government and international governments are against your ideas, what do? You start your own government. That's what this group did, and when they tried to have a revolution of sorts, things didn't go too well. A war lasting over 163 years wiped the entire revolution out. But this wouldn't be the end. Nearly 400 years later, an unknown archaeologist discovered something in a document dating back to the war made by the revolutionaries. He could have turned it in, everything as findings, but instead he kept the information and attempted to, knowing very well that it didn't go right last time. After about 50 years, he had gathered 1,500 people who had found a way to create a near indestructible wall similar to the boundaries to separate themselves and become the side colonies. And it worked. They had started their own civilization, or what would become one, in the intent of breaching the wall and finding the truth. But when they agreed to go to the western area, only about 1,000 people arrived. Turns out a third of everybody involved went to the opposite end. But by then, it was too late. Now being targeted by every colony for, well, stealing their land, they had no choice, and so they just existed separately. By now, the western side colonies had given up on breaking through the wall. They decided to work on their civilization and made a social structure based around large group meditations to create and harness energy around a large tree. To this day, the life of a civilian in the western side colonies is the most peaceful of any. But the eastern side colonies have accidentally found a way to break through the wall using a special bomb. Using this, they found highly valuable resources within the wall and began extracting and going deeper, only to find... What is this? A wall within a wall? That's like... How does that... By now, they thought they could do something to breach it. They used modified versions of the bombs, mining, and so much more. This day, nearly 90 years later, nothing. The other colonies have broken up into lower, central, and upper, now more reminiscent of separate countries, trading and doing other stuff like that, but still being separate. But so far, nothing has changed. But what is outside the wall? Better yet, how did life evolve? The lower colonies are literally overloading lava. Both of these questions have an answer. Have you ever had an anthill? You put ants in a flat colony so you can see them and watch them grow into a full ant colony from nothing but a few ants and some dirt. What if this is the same story? An anthill on a much larger scale. A few months to years becoming hundreds of thousands of years. Ants as fully conscious, highly intelligent beings, all done by some divine power. And at this rate, maybe one day they will meet their creators, and as far as they're concerned, touch the hand of God. While I'm packing this up, I would just like to say that I spent a super long time editing this video, and it would be really awesome if you could subscribe. If you do, you can expect more high quality content like this. That's a bit of a lie, but still. I spend from days to weeks, sometimes even months on end, editing single videos, and subscribing is literally free, and it just helps out a ton. Anyway, thanks for watching.